The wine hit me like a slap cold red and loud enough to stop the entire HOA gala. Gasps echoed. Phones rose. The string lights above flickered as if even they were shocked. Madison Harrow, the HOA president's daughter, stood trembling with rage, shards of anger burning in her eyes. "Security! He doesn't belong here!" she shouted, pointing at me like a threat. I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even wipe the wine dripping down my shirt. Because while everyone saw nobody standing there, Madison had no idea what I was actually here to take from her family. Madison doesn't wait for security. She lunges heels, clicking like gunshots, grabbing a linen napkin from a passing server and trying to shove it against my chest as if wiping the wine will somehow erase me from the room. "Move," she snaps at the server, voice iced with the confidence of someone raised to believe every space belongs to her. That's all you need to know about her personality. She was born in power, not built for it. The room watches her. She loves that. Her mother, Claire Harrow, the HOA president, stands across the ballroom, nodding in approval, like this humiliation is part of the evening program. Claire built the culture. Madison just performs it louder. Their HOA runs on intimidation, fines, and fear, and Madison's been groomed to take over. That's her motivation in one line, proving she's ruthless enough to inherit her mother's little empire. Sir Madison spits the word like, "It's dirty. I'm asking you one last time to leave this event before you embarrass yourself any further." She steps closer, invading my space, tilting her chin high for the cameras now circling us. "This gala is for homeowners," she says, tapping my wine-soaked shirt with the edge of her nail. "Not, whoever you are." I almost laugh, because I am a homeowner, multiple actually, and one quiet sentence of background slips naturally into place. I bought my house here in cash last month, the same week my fund began negotiating a project that would eliminate the HOA's $12 million debt. But Madison doesn't know any of that. She only knows the version of me she made up, and that ignorance is about to cost her everything. The first sign came before the gala, 3 days after I moved in. A violation notice slapped onto my door at sunrise. Porch light exceeds community brightness standards. The bulb was warm white, barely brighter than a candle. 1 hour later, a second notice arrived for improper can placement. My bins sat exactly where every other driveway kept theirs. I knew because I was looking at 5 identical setups across the street. But those houses didn't get orange slips. Only mine did. All signed by Madison Harrow in looping cursive, meant to look official. Working from home means I see everything: who drives by, who stops, who pretends to inspect landscaping, but really scans for reasons to escalate. Madison passed my house 3 times that day, stopping long enough to take pictures, but not long enough to pretend she wasn't targeting me. I didn't react, didn't email, didn't complain, because this wasn't new. In neighborhoods, my fund rebuilt HOAs use the same tactic: pile small violations until the homeowner either bends or leaves. But I wasn't going anywhere, and Madison had no clue she had chosen the worst possible target. The next strike came that weekend. I stepped out onto my porch and found 3 people standing on my lawn. Madison and 2 board members angled toward my living room windows with phones raised like telephoto lenses. "Documenting non-compliance," one muttered. "From my grass?" I asked. Madison didn't flinch. She lowered her phone slowly, like she'd been caught but refused to acknowledge it. "We inspect properties when necessary," she said. "And yours has concerns." She wanted a reaction. I didn't give one. "Interesting," I replied, "because I'm the only homeowner on this street who's received a notice in 48 hours. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You must be new here. We have standards." She stepped closer, heels sinking into my yard. "And if someone slips through screening," she added, "we make sure they're redirected." A board member shifted, embarrassed. Another looked relieved someone else had the courage to say it out loud. I kept my tone calm. "I bought my home, cash. No mortgage, no screening required." Madison blinked. Just once. Then she walked off without another word, because for the first time, she wasn't sure she understood her opponent. The third hit wasn't petty, it was expensive. My renovation crew arrived to level a slab for the community workspace I planned to donate. By noon, the foundation was almost ready to pour. At 12:17 p.m., a towing truck screeched up the street, not for some abandoned car, for my contractor's truck, the one carrying the tools and rebar essential for the day's pour. Madison stood beside the tow driver with folded arms, wearing sunglasses, though the sky was overcast. "This vehicle violates the no commercial parking clause," she announced to my crew. "It's here for a temporary job," the foreman argued. She shrugged. "Rules are rules." Should have asked permission. By the time I stepped outside, the truck was already hooked. The foundation crew stood helpless, the day ruined. Wet concrete sitting in the mixer, timing wasted, money gone. What exactly was the problem? I asked. Madison didn't break stride as she walked past me. Your workers clutter the neighborhood, she said. We protect property values here. My jaw tightened, but only for a moment, because tucked inside that sabotage was a line that mattered more than she knew. I had promised local teens apprenticeships tied to this project. This delay hit them, not me, and that shifted everything. Madison wasn't just harassing me now. She was hurting the future I was building for kids who needed a break. The fourth hit came at dusk. Blue lights flickered against my garage door. 2 officers stepped out, hands resting lightly near their belts. Madison stood at the sidewalk, arms crossed, lips pursed in dramatic concern. Ma'am reported a suspicious male looking into windows, one officer said. I looked down at myself wearing work gloves, holding blueprints, standing in my own driveway. Windows, I repeated. Mine. Madison didn't look at me. She spoke to the officers instead. I'm just trying to keep our women safe. We don't know who he really is. I opened the blueprint tube and calmly handed the officers my property documents, investment license, and a city email referencing the proposed partnership, heavily redacted. But enough. Their posture shifted instantly. Mr. Carter, one said, everything seems in order. They walked back to their cruiser. Madison stayed frozen, processing the fact that her attempt had failed. One officer paused before driving off. Ma'am, he told her, false reports are chargeable. Her face cracked just slightly, and that was the first moment she realized I wasn't someone she could intimidate into disappearing. The city scheduled a joint HOA fundraiser, a chance for the board to impress donors and prove they deserved the massive redevelopment deal still sitting unsigned in my briefcase. Claire Harrow, the HOA president, treated it like a coronation. Madison treated it like territory she personally owned. The city's redevelopment director pulled me aside earlier that afternoon. Once you sign, he said, this neighborhood gets a full rebuild. Debt relief, new infrastructure, community centers. But we only move forward if the HOA leadership is clean. I nodded. It won't take long to find out. So I arrived at the gala without an entourage, without announcement, quiet tux, no designer flash. I wanted to see how they behaved when they thought no one important was watching. And Madison delivered. She screened guests at the entrance, waving in every familiar face while subtly slowing unfamiliar ones. When I walked by, she froze, looked me up and down, and narrowed her eyes like she was sniffing out a threat. Inside, she watched me as if waiting for a mistake. When I admired an auction item too long, she whispered to a board member. When I complimented the decor to a server, she frowned like I'd trespassed. Finally, she snapped. After convincing herself I didn't belong, she grabbed the nearest wine glass, stormed across the ballroom, and threw it in my face. That's where the hook began. But what comes next? That's where her entire world ends. The wine kept sliding down my shirt in thin red lines, catching the chandelier light like streaks of molten glass. Madison stood inches from me, chest rising and falling, convinced the entire HOA gala was cheering her on. This, she declared, loudly gesturing at me, is why we have screening. This is why we have rules. Cameras pivoted toward her not to support her, but because a meltdown this dramatic demanded documentation. Security, she barked. Remove him before he ruins the event. The guards didn't move. Not because they were defending me, but because they'd finally realized they were watching something dangerous unfold. Something career-ending. Something recorded by half the room. I didn't say a word. Silence is sometimes the sharpest blade. Behind her HOA president, Claire Harrow pushed through the crowd. Her lips were tight, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Madison, what are you doing? Handle this quietly. I am handling it, Madison snapped. He's not supposed to be here. He's one of those. She caught herself, but the unfinished word hung there anyway, poisoning the air. A dozen phones zoomed in at once. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, she's done." But Madison didn't notice. She leaned in, eyes burning with the kind of certainty only ignorance produces. You picked the wrong HOA to mess with. I finally raised my head. And the room, every last person felt the shift. A storm answering a spark. Time to end this. I reached into my inner pocket slow enough that every camera followed the motion. The room hushed. Even the servers stopped mid-step. Madison's voice cracked with uncertainty. What are you doing? I pulled out a folded document, thick official, stamped with city seals. This, I said calmly, is the agreement your mother has been begging the city to approve. Claire froze. Madison blinked rapidly, uncertain for the first time tonight. I opened the folder to reveal the header. Harbor Redevelopment Partnership, $900. 0000000 Initiative. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. "You're lying," Madison whispered. Her voice had lost its claws. I lifted my phone next. One swipe. A soft audio clip filled the room, Madison's voice recorded earlier that week. "Keep certain people from buying here. They don't fit our neighborhood image." Her mother paled. A board member covered his face. I let the clip play only 5 seconds, enough to confirm tone, prejudice, intent. The room stiffened with outrage. Then I tapped the HOA's email printouts clipped inside the folder. Several contained phrases in Madison's handwriting: undesirable homeowners, wrong demographic, preserve the right kind of community. Every camera captured it. Every donor saw it. Every city official heard the words that would haunt their HOA for years. Madison staggered back, shaking her head. "Stop. Stop. You can't do this. You're nobody." I cut her off with 4 quiet words that detonated across the ballroom. "My name is Evan Carter." Claire Harrow gasped like she'd been struck. The city's redevelopment director straightened instantly. Everyone in local government knew my name. And Madison finally understood. I wasn't the intruder. I was the man holding the contract that could save or bury the HOA. Claire pushed forward, voice trembling. "Mr. Carter, Evan, please, this is a misunderstanding. You're a respected investor, and my daughter, she didn't know. She knew exactly what she was doing," I said. "And so did you." I placed the contract on a nearby table. A spotlight caught the gold seal, making it shine like a verdict. "Your HOA needs this deal," I continued. "Your debt is suffocating. Your roads are degrading. Your insurance premiums are weeks from default." Madison shook her head violently. "No, we can fix this. I'll apologize. I'll delete the email. You can't walk away over a little misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I replied. "It was a culture. One you helped create." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The city director stepped beside me. "For the record," he announced to the room, "the city will not partner with leadership that discriminates against residents or potential investors. If Mr. Carter withdraws, we will reevaluate this HOA's eligibility entirely." Gasps. Panic. Board members blanched. Claire whispered, "Please, don't punish the entire community for her mistake." I looked around the room, hundreds of eyes, some apologetic, some ashamed, some relieved. Someone finally called out the family who ruled this place through fear. "This community isn't the problem," I said. "Your leadership is." Then I signed one simple line across the bottom of the contract: declined. Phones exploded with flashes. Someone dropped a glass that shattered like punctuation. Claire sagged into a chair, face collapsing under the weight of what she'd just lost. Madison stepped backward, hand over her mouth, realizing her tantrum had just cost her family $900 million and the HOA's entire future. I closed the folder, turned to the crowd. "This neighborhood deserves better," I said quietly. "And now, you finally have a reason to choose better." Then I walked toward the exit, leaving a room full of stunned silence, and one family watching their empire burn down in real time. The ballroom didn't breathe after I signed, declined. No music, no murmurs, just a stunned metallic silence hanging beneath crystal chandeliers. Then sound crashed back in gasps, frantic whispers, chairs scraping as people stumbled to process what they had just witnessed. I walked toward the lobby, archway, wine drying on my tux like a stain the world would never unsee. I was 2 steps from leaving the ballroom when the first wave hit. "Mr. Carter, wait please, Elliot." Parks, one of the board members, practically lunged across a table to reach me. His tie was crooked, his face pale, the panic unmistakable. "We didn't know," he blurted. "We had no idea what Madison was doing. We don't support any of that." 2 more board members hovered behind him, nodding frantically, even though I hadn't asked them anything. They weren't defending her, they were defending themselves. I held up a hand. "I'm not blaming every homeowner," I said. "But all of you watched her behavior for years. Tonight wasn't new. The only difference is that someone finally recorded it." They fell silent. Truth has a way of clearing a room faster than fire. A woman in her late 60s stepped forward next. She looked at me with eyes wet from something heavier than embarrassment. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry," she whispered. "For all of us. We saw things. We stayed quiet. That wasn't right." Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from years of regret finally surfacing. Before I could respond, Madison's voice tore through the air. "Stop talking to him. He's manipulating you. He's ruining everything." No one moved toward her. No one echoed her outrage. For the first time all night, she stood alone in a room she thought she owned. She shoved through the crowd, mascara streaked from tears she couldn't control, and stopped in front of me with the jittery panic of someone realizing their world has a trapdoor. "You don't get it," she said, her breath ragged. My mom, she'll lose everything. Our home, the HOA, my role. Please, you can't let this happen. I kept my voice calm. This wasn't about me, I said. It was about the way you treat people you think can't fight back. Her eyes cracked, anger, confusion, panic, mixing into something unfamiliar to her consequence. That's when the responding officer from earlier approached, notebook in hand. Sir, he said, would you like to give a statement regarding the assault? Madison's breath hitched so sharply the people behind her actually stepped back. Yes, I said simply. The officer began recording details. His partner kept the space clear as more neighbors drifted toward the lobby, drawn by the gravitational pull of a collapsing dynasty. Then Claire Harrow, the HOA president, finally reached us. Her face was drained, the rigid confidence she'd worn all night completely gone. Evan, please, she said, voice barely holding together. We can fix this. Madison made a terrible mistake, but don't punish the entire community for her actions. The community isn't the problem, I replied. Leadership is. Behind her, neighbors exchanged glances, quiet agreement they'd never dared express out loud inside the Harrow kingdom. Claire reached for my arm. I stepped back before she made contact. You built a culture where your daughter thought humiliation was authority, I said. Tonight just exposed what was already there. Before she could respond, another voice entered the circle. Mr. Carter. It was one of my mentoring teens, Noah, still in his catering apron, squeezing his hands together nervously. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of the answer. Are the internships still happening, he asked. That landed deeper than anything tonight. Yes, I said immediately. No HOA is stopping that. His shoulders sagged in relief, and a quiet exhale rippled through the crowd. Even people who hadn't known about the program realized the stakes extended far beyond property lines. A man stepped forward from the group, middle-aged professional, the type who probably memorized HOA bylaws but hated how they were enforced. Mr. Carter, he said, steadying himself, if we vote the Harrows out, would you reconsider the redevelopment deal? The question froze the room. Not because of the deal, but because it was the first time someone had dared say out loud that the HOA's reign was no longer guaranteed. I looked around the lobby, at regretful eyes, ashamed ones, angry ones, hopeful ones, at a neighborhood standing on the edge of choosing who they wanted to be. I'm not signing anything tonight, I said. But if this community replaces its leadership with people who actually care about fairness, call the city. We'll talk. Not a promise, a possibility. The kind neighborhoods rarely get after years of being ruled by fear. Behind the group, Madison sank into a gold-trimmed chair, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. Her world didn't end because of me. It ended because she finally saw it from the outside. Claire looked hollow, staring toward the ballroom, where donors and neighbors whispered about a future that no longer included her. The officer finished the initial statement. We'll need a follow-up, he said quietly. That's fine, I replied. The lobby parted as I moved toward the exit. No applause, no cheers, just the sound of a community waking up. I stepped outside into the cool night air, the weight of wine-stiffened fabric cooling against my skin. The Gala's glow spilled across the pavement behind me, dim, flickering, unsteady. Madison's words echoed faintly from inside. So did the residents' questions. So did the opportunity they'd never had before tonight. I paused at the bottom of the steps and looked back once. A single glass of wine had revealed everything. Now, it was their turn to decide what they wanted to build next. And I was ready either way.